you, Kathy. Wow. I love the word celebration. I am so grateful to be here with y'all to celebrate the new quality of life that we are choosing today. And I teach first grade. That's why I look so tired. I've been trying but last night we had to take a whole bunch of little 6- and 7-year-olds to a football game so that they could be cheerleaders for 3 minutes. And so I didn't get to be here to hear Bob, and I'm sorry about that, but I will get the tape. And I found out a few minutes ago that Steve is responsible for my room, and I want to thank you, Steve. I think we're really going to have a good time there. I'm sorry, I'm going to have a good time there. And Kathy has been one of the most diligent hostesses you could hope to have. There was never a time where I didn't know where I was supposed to be, when I was supposed to be here, and how I was going to get here. The good news is I live in Texas, and I got to drive here, and it was a pretty day, and it was really nice. I am from a little town called Granite Shoals, and it's a little bit outside of Marble Falls, which is a little bit outside of Austin, which is a little bit north of San Antonio, and so everything's a little bit in that area. But anyway, and then I have to tell you, Marcia's gave me this beautiful bag. It's a green bag. We're doing green. I'm kind of behind the times. But it's a green bag I get to use every day when I go to the grocery store. And then I have to ask you, if you have not felt the love from Joe and Kathy, then you just haven't been paying attention. I mean, Joe and Kay. I'm telling you that the two of them have loved me unconditionally for a very, very long time. You have supported me over the years, and you have enriched my life just by your presence. And I'm telling you, they have the ability to love for free. And if you're not in that circle, get there. Because they are an amazing, healthy, loving couple. And I am grateful to know the two of you. Okay, my name is Stephanie, and I'm a grateful member of Al-Anon. I love to talk about y'all instead of me. And I have a lot of Brownwood friends here from the Lakeside Conference, and it was wonderful to see all of y'all again. And, in Texas, we give our sobriety birthday, and so one day I told somebody how long I'd been sober, and they came up later and they said, "You mean you've never had a slip?" And I thought, oh my gosh, I slip every day. So I called my sponsor and I said, how do we in Al-Anon get to celebrate the day, our sobriety? And Blanche told me that it was the day that I first came to my first meeting. I made a commitment to work this program to the very best of my ability. And that was July the 24th of 1985. And I slipped yesterday. I slipped this morning. It's just a constant thing. But I can tell you that I have made a commitment to try to do things different and to live in a healthy, beautiful life we're celebrating tonight, and I am grateful to be here. I loved listening to Susie, and Josh just warmed my heart. The honesty from that young man, oh my gosh. I asked him if he would let me call him son, but I'm just teasing. I have a son that I just love, but he's a lot older than Josh. And I'm looking forward to hearing Butch. I have not heard Butch's story yet, and I have heard Gary from Nebraska. So after you get this hour over with, you're going to have a great time. There's the before and the after. I just happen to be in the middle. But you know what? I am thrilled to death to be in Al-Anon. I am grateful to know that I have choices today. I never knew that for a very long time. I thought that if things were bad, they were always going to be bad. There was never going to be another way. And when I heard Josh make a reference today to the fact that, he knew that he'd be okay if she said he was okay and if she was okay, and he said that might be kind of an Al-Anon thought. We all laughed a lot because that That's almost like the Al-Anon slogan. We're fine. If you're fine, everybody's fine. Our literature suggests that we share in a general way how sick we got, how well we are, and what helped us to get well, with the emphasis being on what helped us to get well. So that's what I'm going to try to do with you this evening. I was born the oldest of three into a Catholic Italian family. Ta-da! That takes care of how sick I got. But there is more. I was born Christmas Eve, and so isn't that great? Y'all are supposed to go, "Aw." Thank you. I've been looking for that kind of support for years. Really, I was born Christmas Eve, and it used to be Jesus and me were having a birthday. And this coming Christmas, I'm going to be 64 years old, and I'm telling you, I'm grateful to be sucking air. And it has been a journey, but I am so grateful for the fourth step, because I got to go back and see how those Catholic Italians messed me up. And then I found out it really wasn't them. It was me. But that's one of the things that when I came into the program, they said, you do need to go back and see how you got to be how you are. And I noticed, and I did a life story, which is what I was asked to do by my sponsor. And I realized that my mother was one of 8 children, and she was raised in a home where her daddy was a bootlegger. And they never talked about alcoholism, but she had lots of brothers that died from the disease of alcoholism. But we just say they had a drinking problem. And so my mother was raised in a home by an untreated Al-Anon. My mother was and is today an untreated Al-Anon. Now, you'll hear a lot in the program about people saying, "Oh, she must be an Al-Anon," and that's because you see some kind of sick behavior. Well, you are in Al-Anon if you go to meetings, read the literature, get the sponsor, and work the steps. You are untreated if you just hang out with alcoholics and it gets on you. And, my mama was raised in a home where it just got on her. And she's 85 years old today, and it's still on her. But that's okay. I love her dearly. And my daddy was a workaholic. So I realized that I was raised in a home with a mother who had been raised by an alcoholic. And then I was raised by a daddy who could not really be there for us. Physically, he showed up every day. But emotionally, he was somewhere else. My parents were social drinkers. They did not drink alcoholically. I kept looking at that, trying to find out if surely. But they would have a party at the house once or twice a year. So I was not raised in an alcoholic home. But I was raised by an untreated Al-Anon. And I need to tell you that we had a sign in our front yard that said, "We are fine, thank you very much." And in the 18 years that I lived at home, I saw my mama get mad at my daddy one time. She started crying, she walked out, slammed the door, got in the car, and drove off. Now, what that taught me as a young person was when people get angry, they leave. So I did everything in my power to keep people from getting angry. That's where my people-pleasing got put in place. Please don't get mad because I'm afraid you're going to leave. We never expressed our emotions. We were really and truly always fine. Nobody was ever really happy. Nobody was ever sad. We were just fine. Thank you very much. How are you? We're fine. We're always fine. And now I realize nothing. I think one of the most important things that we do for each other when we are in meetings is to validate each other's feelings. I think when I started working with Blanche, that was the very first thing she ever did for me. She looked at me and said, "Did that make you angry?" And I said, "No, was it supposed to make me angry?" Because everything just hurt my feelings. That's all I ever said was, "No, it just hurt my feelings. I just had her feelings hurt." And Blanche would say, "That would have made me angry." And then I say, "Okay, I'm getting angry now." I didn't know how to do anger. It is so sad that I know a lot of people are raised in rageful homes. I know how damaging that can be. I also need to tell you that I think it is really difficult to be raised in a home where you're always fine. You don't know when a feeling comes up how it's going to be expressed and resolved. My thought from my childhood was, if you get mad, you leave. Now, that's not true. Anger used well can be a healthy emotion. But in my home, it was like, you're going to leave. So I grew up, I was born in Midland, Texas, but I grew up in San Antonio. And when I was a senior in high school, I met the man that I love, and his name was Bill, and we dated for 4.5 years, and then we got married. Bill I've never seen him take a drink. We just, we were teenagers, and we just had fun, and I don't know what it was about us, but we just didn't drink. And so I had gone to school to be a school teacher, and Bill had a job, and we got married and moved to Austin, Texas. And that's where we raised our family. So after I got to teach for 3 years, and every once in a while, Bill would be on a business trip, and he'd call and he'd say, we had the nicest happy hour tonight. And I said, you did? And he said, oh, I'm telling you. He said, there were drinks everywhere. Or he'd call and say, Stephanie, they are serving free drinks on an airplane. Did you know that? You can have a free drink. And then bottles of beer started showing up in our refrigerator, and I just didn't know why they were there, because in my family, we never had beer in the refrigerator. So I start paying attention, right? I'm going to watch this and be sure. Well, after I had taught for 3 years, I became pregnant, and all I had ever wanted to do besides be a school teacher was to be a mommy. And so I am thrilled to death. And so now we are in the summer of '69, and we have a Catholic Italian wedding in San Antonio that we are to go to. And we're so excited, and I'm 8 months pregnant, and I am thrilled, and they're thrilled. We're all thrilled that Stephanie's I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, And so here I am, 8 months pregnant. We go to this wedding, and it's a beautiful Saturday morning, and there is sun shining, and it's a Catholic wedding. And after the wedding, we go have a reception, and the champagne is flowing, and people are coming up to me telling me that they think I have got the funniest husband. They have really enjoyed being with Bill. And I am saying to myself, good. And a few minutes later, somebody else would come up and say, Bill has just kept us in stitches. He is the funniest guy. I go, well, that's nice. Now, I thought maybe he had gotten with the program, because I have to tell you that Bill was raised by a single mom as an only child. And when you put him in these Catholic Italian gatherings, he was not a happy camper. So I'm thinking, well, maybe he's decided to get with it, And so we decided to go out to the airport to wave goodbye to the couple that's going to be honeymooning in Hawaii. And so we're standing at the airport, and I have different relatives coming up telling me how much they've enjoyed being with my husband. And so we wave goodbye to the newlyweds, and we get ready to leave, and we can't find Bill. And so we have him paged, and we don't know where he is, and they go out to the car, and he's not there, and they go up and down the ramps, and they don't know where Bill is. And so finally my brother-in-law comes up, and he says, I found Bill. And I said, well, where is he? And he said, he's passed out in the men's room. I said, what? And we had to get an airport attendant to take that door off the hinges. We had to get a wheelchair. I pulled up his britches. We had to buckle the britches. We put him in that wheelchair. And so my brother-in-law says, do you want me to push the wheelchair? I said, no, I can do this. He's my husband. So I am 8 months pregnant, pushing this wheelchair. Butler's sliding out. We're shoving him back in again. We're walking out of the airport, and my mother is saying, I cannot believe my son-in-law is drunk. And I said, oh, Mama, don't say that. Bless his little heart. If you ever hear me say bless his little heart, I am having an Al-Anon slip. I said, Mama, he is not drunk. He's sick. She said, Stephanie, he is drunk. I said, Mama, stop saying that. He is sick. And the reason I'm telling you that story is because 19 years later, I am in a psychiatrist's office saying, do you think he could have a brain tumor? I'm pretty sure it's a brain tumor. Let's operate on that sucker, pull it out, and let us get on with the rest of our lives. My denial was put in place that July of 1969. And it stayed there. He is not drunk. He's just sick. Bless his little heart. And I didn't know what a powerful, powerful disease and how powerful denial can be until I had a chance to go back and look at it again. Well, in August of 1969, a beautiful little girl was born. Her name is Laura Janice. And I'm so happy. She is just a beautiful baby, and I wanted to be a mommy. And 21 months later, our son Wes is born. And we, thank you, God, have a healthy daughter and a healthy son. And now I'm a stay-at-home mommy. I'm telling you, I've had a career. I got to teach school. Now I get to be home with the kids. What more could you want? Well, I had this little hole inside of me. I'll tell you what you can want. You can want to get your insides filled up by the outsides. And that's always how I was. You know, when I was growing up, I did have a God. But I had a God that was going to punish me if I did bad. So I'm going to try to do the very best I can every day. And I am living in fear that it's not going to be good enough. I'm just not good enough. So I am trying so hard to get you to say, great job, couldn't have done it without you. And then I'll think, okay, so if y'all are happy, God's happy, everything's okay. Well, you know, I'm just trying as hard as I can to, and Laura, well, I need to tell you about Laura. You're going to hear a lot about Laura. But if there was a rule written, Laura decided she wanted to break it. There is not a rule that Laura has not broken. And I'm telling you, you know, her behavior is such a reflection of my parenting. And I wanted her to look good so that I would look good. You know, and things are escalating at our house, and Bill's drinking more. Wes is in soccer. He's just like his mom, trying to get his insides filled by the outside. I am Brownie Scout leader. I am in charge of I'm a PTA president. I'm in charge of building a playscape. I mean, I'm just doing everything I can think to do to try to get you to say, good job. You're good enough. You did a great job. I'm out there busting my buns. And Laura's out there just knocking everything down. She's just like, Mama's building it, Laura's taking it down. It's her story, and she's sticking to it. But you know what? I have to tell you another little story. We had a border collie, one of the prettiest puppies you have ever seen in your life. Best dog. Her name was Flopsy. And Flopsy's going to have puppies. Now, we've never had puppies before at our house. So I decided that I wanted to shampoo Flopsy so that she would look good for delivery day. You know, I had nothing else to do. So I bathed Flopsy, and then I got the bottle of shampoo because I remembered sometimes dogs run and dry, and sometimes you towel dry them. And I wanted to do it right, of course. So I read on the bottle, and it says, do not use on pregnant dogs. So I called the vet, and I said, Dr. Paget, this is what I just did. And he said, well, Stephanie, it's about 2 weeks till your puppies are born. Let's just wait and see. And sure enough, about 2 weeks later, the first puppy was born, and it was born dead. And I called Dr. Paget, and I said, Dr. Paget, I have killed these puppies. And he says, there's a lot of puppies going to be born. Let's just wait and see. So the second puppy was born, and it was born alive. So I called Dr. Paget, and I said, I did not kill all these puppies, Dr. Paget. He said, that's really good. About an hour later, another puppy was born, and it was born alive. So I called Dr. Paget, and I said, Dr. Paget, we have 2 puppies. He says, that's really good, Stephanie. Well, over the period of a day, Flopsy had 7 puppies. I called Dr. Paget after every puppy. I felt such a responsibility. You know, either I was going to save them or I had killed them. You know, and so I was calling Dr. Paget all the time. Well, the last puppy was born, and it had trouble breathing. So I called Dr. Paget. I said, Dr. Paget, we've got a little runt here, and I don't know what to do. And he said, well, do you have any whiskey in your house? And I said, yes. And he said, well, then put some on the end of a teaspoon, put it in the puppy's mouth, massage it down the puppy's throat, and the puppy's going to be okay. I said, okay, I think I can do that. And he said, and then, Stephanie, sit down and drink the rest of that bottle. story, and I want you to know if I could have, I would have. I was so tired. You know, I don't know about anybody else, but I'm telling you, I think it needs to say in our Al-Anon preamble, if you are not tired, you do not belong here. I am telling you, we are trying to save everything and everybody, and we want to look good in the process. And I've got that daughter out there. I've got the sign in the front yard that says, "We are fine, thank you very much." Laura's standing on the roof going, "They're crazy. Somebody come help me." And we did not like that. And so we took her to a psychologist and we said, "Fix that kid." And so he met with Bill for a minute, and then he met with me, and then he met with Laura, and then he brought the three of us back. And he said, "I need to tell you that of the three of you, your daughter is the healthiest." You know, Laura's going, "Yes." You know, Bill did not want to pay the bill. But he said, I mean, we were both sitting there just astounded, and he looked at me and he said, "You're crying all the time." And I was. If you asked me how I was, you know, and he looked at Bill and he said, "I think you're drinking a little too much." And he said, "And Laura lets you know how she feels. She is angry, and she's doing it inappropriately, but you know how Laura feels. So she is the healthiest one." So that didn't go over well with anybody. Bill drank more, I cried more. Laura, you know, was running around going, "Yes." And it was not a pretty sight. And so Laura's now growing up, and she is breaking all the rules. I mean, every time there's anything out there, Wes is playing soccer, and I'm trying to be the best coach he's ever had. And I'm really a cheerleader, but I act like a coach. And it's just it's a hard place. It's a hard place to be. Well, Laura is in high school, and she has to have jaw surgery. She's a beautiful girl when you look at her from the front. But if you turn her sideways, she has a very protruding chin. So they were going to go in and clip her jawbone and slide it back and then wire her mouth shut. I love that part. So we are in the hospital, and it's time for surgery. We are ready for Laura to go be operated on, and I have my first moment of clarity. Bill's not there. He's passed out at home. So our daughter is going in for major surgery, and I am doing it alone. And for the first time in my life, I said to myself, I am doing this marriage and this family all by myself. And I started to pay attention. Bill's drinking is escalating. He's drinking all the time. He drinks at home. He has a bottle in the back of his pickup truck. He's drinking on the way home. He's drinking at home. And he'll come in and say, "What's for dinner?" And I'll tell him, and 5 minutes later he'll ask me, "What's for dinner?" That's when I thought he had the brain tumor. But you know, and he's getting real puffy, like that little, what do you call it, Pillsbury Doughboy? You know, he's not fat, he's puffy. And, you know, I think that the alcohol had just been absorbed into his body. He was really a mess. And I didn't know what we were going to do. So I'm watching him, and I think he's going to die. For some reason, I think he's going to die. And I think I can't watch it happen. So I told him in July of 1985, "I love you too much to watch you kill yourself with booze. You either have to get sober or you have to leave." And you know what the response is. "Well, I'm leaving. But it's not because you asked me to, it's because I wouldn't want to live with you either." And you know, and now that I've done an inventory, I wouldn't have wanted to live with me either. But at the time, it was like, you get him sober and we're going to be just fine. There's the problem. Sober that dadgum guy up. And I don't want him to die on my watch. I love him, and I can't watch it happen. And so I'm crying, and he leaves, and, you know, now I've got 2 teenagers at home, and I've done what I think most untreated Al-Anons do before we get here. I take it to it. How bad can it get? Well, I'm back to teaching school, so I guess probably what we're going to do is go live in a tent, because school teachers make nothing. and I've got these 2 teenagers, and so I've done that scenario, and I'm going, yep, I'm okay with that. Yep, I'm okay. I cannot watch him kill himself. And so the kids and I'll go live in a tent. Well, the day after he left, a friend of his called from work, and he said, Stephanie, this is Jerry, and he said, I understand you kicked Bill out. And I said, I just told him he either had to get sober or leave. I can't watch him die. And Jerry said, well, I'm a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'd like to take you to a meeting. Will you go? And I'm telling you, I would have done anything. So July 24th, 1985, I went to my first Al-Anon meeting. I have no idea what you said. All I did was cry. You know, they'd say, just tell us your name. And they'd say, okay, just keep coming back. Just keep coming back. And I would have done anything. I was so desperate that I did not care. They said, you've got to come back to more meetings. I said, okay. You know, and I was just, whatever you tell me to do, that's what I'm going to do. Well, about 2 weeks after I went to my first Al-Anon meeting, Bill calls. And he said, Stephanie, I've been out at Willie's trying to sober myself up, and I can't do it. He said, I need help. So Bill went into treatment on August the 6th of 1985. So now I'm thinking, hey, man, we have got it made. That's all I ever wanted, was for that man to get sober. And then I go to Al-Anon, and y'all tell me to take the focus off of him and put it on me, and I go, about time. I have been trying to take care of this whole family, and I'm ready for you to let me. I am important, and I need somebody to listen. And so y'all said, get a sponsor, and oh my gosh, did I get a sponsor. Her name's Blanche. I did not know that Blanche had been in Al-Anon for 23 years when I asked her to sponsor me. I did not know that she was rigid, and she said, you will go to meetings, and we will meet for 1 hour every week until you are through with the 9th step. You will read your literature, you will pray and meditate, and then when she sat with me for a while, she went, ho, 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 wait a minute. She said, we're going to change your concept of God. She said, I am listening to you talk, and you have a God that you are afraid of. And I said, yes, I do. And she said, did you not know that God cannot do bad? He cannot do bad. Did you also know that there's nothing you can do to get him to stop loving you? She said, we're going to start changing your concept of a higher power. And for the very first time in my life, she touched my face and she said, it's okay to be who you are and feel the way you feel. She listened. She got kind of tired of listening sometimes, because when I got somebody that would listen to me, I started talking. And that hour, I would go to her house and we'd sit down and I go, blah, 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 blah. 5 minutes left, she said, would you like some feedback on that? Said, nope, got too much to say. Blah, 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 blah. She was wonderful. When you hug Blanche, she hugs you from your toes to the tip of your head. And she loved Al-Anon, and she instilled in me a love for the fellowship and a love for the program. And we read together and we prayed together, and it was just, and when I would go to the meetings and hear things that I didn't think I could stand to hear, I'd take them to Blanche. I heard in the meetings that alcoholism is a family illness. I heard that if you raise children in an alcoholic home, you have raised sick kids. I didn't think I could stand it. I did not want to hurt my children. And then Blanche said, but you did the very best you could with what you knew at the time. And then they told me the very best thing you can do for your children is to work your Al-Anon program. You might have messed them up, Stephanie. This is what Blanche said. You might have messed them up, but if you show them about Al-Anon, we'll straighten them out. And so every time I'd see the kids do something, I'd say, okay, I've messed you up, but now I'm showing you where to go get help. And so we did. We met all the time. It was wonderful. And Bill's going to his meetings, and I'm going to mine, and he got a sponsor. Lon, oh my gosh, what a wonderful man. He'd go to a meeting, and we'd come back, and he'd say, oh, what'd you talk about? And I said, we talked about detachment. What'd you talk about? Oh, we talked about the 11th step. I go, oh, isn't that great? It was just amazing. I was so grateful to have a sober husband. And then there's Laura. Well, Laura did not like a drinking daddy, but let me tell you how much Laura did not like a sober daddy. He was present, he was paying attention, and he was holding her accountable. She didn't like that very much. So she's now a senior in high school. Oh my God, I just want to get her out of high school. She's got 2 months to graduation. She's done something she wasn't supposed to do, so we grounded her. And so then after she had been grounded for about a week, she came in and she said, the University of Texas is playing baseball and I want to go watch them play. Can I go? So Bill and I sat down and we talked about it, and we agreed. Yeah, you can go. It's a Sunday afternoon. You can go, but you'd be home by 6 o'clock. She says, I'll be home. Well, Sunday afternoon came and Laura didn't come home. Monday morning, Laura wasn't at home. Tuesday, Laura wasn't at home. Now, I am calling Blanche. I'm going to meetings, and y'all are saying neat things to me like, well, what would you be doing if this weren't happening? Oh, my God. It was like, it is happening, and I need help here. I want to call the cops. We need to go find her. We've got to drive. All we have to do is get her out of high school. If we can just get her out of high school, that's all I want to do. Bill would go to Lon, and Lon would say, you need to love and accept her right where she is. And Bill would come home and he said, Stephanie, we just have to love and accept her right where she is. And I said, we don't even know where she is. Oh my gosh, it was horrible. I'm back teaching school, and I'm just, I'm going to meetings as often as I can. I'm crying. I can't understand why I'm still crying. I have been crying for a whole year at every single meeting. And so one time I went to Blanche and I said, Blanche, why can I not stop crying? I said, Bill got sober and that's all I wanted. And she said, you are grieving the loss of a dream. You never intended for your family to be held in the grips of alcoholism. It's the loss of a dream. So now I'm calling her and I'm crying because we don't know where Laura is. And she's saying things to me like, Stephanie, did you know that God loves Laura more than you do? And I thought, well, he sure better, because I'm about to kill the kid if I get my hands on that kid. So it's a Wednesday afternoon. Laura's been gone since Sunday. I have finished teaching school. I'm getting in my car, getting ready to go home. And that's a moment of clarity. It's as if this voice in my head said, if what you're doing isn't working, try something different. And I thought, I have been trying to love Laura well. It isn't working. Friday afternoon of that week, the phone rings and it's Laura. Hey, Mom, listen, I'm not going to be home in time to tape this thing on TV, but if you'd put in a tape for me, I would really appreciate it. As if nothing had happened. And I said, Laura, I love you and you can't come home. She said, what? I said, I love you and you can't come home. Oh my gosh, she was so angry and she just, blah, 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 blah. And I said, I love you and you can't come home. And I hung up the phone. I was as peaceful as I've ever been. And Bill walks in about that time and he says, hey, what's going on? I said, you won't believe what I just did. And he said, what? And I said, well, Laura called. And he said, where is she? And I said, well, I don't know. But I just told her she couldn't come home. And he went, oh, Steph, do you think that was a good idea? He's never been to any Al-Anon meetings. I said, I don't know if it was a good idea, but that's what I did. It felt so right. Well, the next Saturday morning, I'm at an Al-Anon meeting. You don't believe what I did! Oh my, that moment, that calm, clarity, graced moment lasted 1 moment. I am at the meeting and I am crying and screaming and hollering and they are saying things to me like, did you know you could have a good day anyway? I am saying things like you don't understand. Laura left, and I told her she couldn't come back home, and now we have no idea where she is. And they said, well, I'm sure that she will be just fine. Now, what are you going to do today? And so Bill's, he's talking to his sponsor, and I'm calling Blanche, and Blanche is saying, God loves her. God loves her. Let's just pray about it. That's all you can do. Just keep on praying. Well, Laura was gone for a whole month. And during that month, it was very quiet at our house. I've never said that from the podium before. It was very quiet at our house. But I'm going to meetings, and y'all are, you're supporting me completely. You are loving me, saying it's okay. We don't know how this story's going to end. Let's just see how it all unfolds. Bill's going to his meetings, and they're talking to him about acceptance and, great. What are you grateful for today? And well, after she had been gone for about a month, Bill had been trying to find a treatment center that would take teenagers that had behavior problems. And so we found one. And so I said to Blanche, can I call Laura? I found out she's over at Cherie's house. And Blanche said yes. So I called Laura and said, if you would like help, we have a place where you can go. Well, what do I have to do? I said, well, Daddy and I'll come get you in the morning. And so we picked Laura up, and we took her to a halfway house in Denton, Texas. And, a treatment center. Wasn't a halfway house. A treatment center in Denton, Texas. I have never been so stunned. Laura had been living under park benches. She had been beat up in pool halls. She looked horrible. I cried all the way to Denton. I could not believe that this was my daughter. It was horrible. The only reason I had any peace was because while she was in Denton, I knew where she was. She had been there for 2 days, and she calls, and she says, hey, Mom, what do you think about me being an alcoholic? And I said, Laura, any 12-step program you want to latch on to is just fine with me. She said, we've been inventorying my drinking, Mama. I'm an alcoholic. This past April the 6th, Laura celebrated 21 years of sobriety. Isn't that amazing? Wow. I was so grateful. It was just like, oh my gosh. And then we go for family week. Don't you love it? And so we're all sitting around for family week, and Laura starts to try to get her daddy to do something that he doesn't want to do in front of all these people, and Bill won't do it, and she gets up and throws a chair across the room. So they suggested to us that she might not be ready to come home yet. And so they suggested that she go to a halfway house in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And that's where Laura went for 4.5 months, to a halfway house. Now let me tell you, I wanted Laura to graduate from high school. God said, let's let her graduate by correspondence, and let's give her a 12-step program to live the rest of her life by. I would have cut it short. I just needed that piece of paper, and God said, let's give her a life plan. So now Laura's back home, and she's going to meetings, and I'm in the meetings crying. I have Bill on one side, we're saying the Lord, and Laura, I'm just thrilled, grateful. And Wes is about to be a senior in high school. And so, but this is that good kid. He's that good kid getting his insides filled by the outside. And he's doing 2-a-days. He's playing football in his senior year, and he's doing 2-a-days. And Wes gets real sick. And he ends up in the hospital with 104 temperature. And we didn't know what was wrong. And we got an internist, and he said, your son has viral meningitis. Wes was in the hospital for 7 days with 104 temperature. I called Blanche, and I said, Blanche, why would God do this to us? This boy has never hurt anybody. I'm trying to work a spiritual program. Bill's trying to work a spiritual program. Laura is. And Blanche says to me, Stephanie, God didn't do this. Your boy got a virus. God will sustain you no matter what happens. Now, the difference in this hospital stay and the one with Laura was that Bill and I were together. We prayed together. We cried together. We asked the doctor, he's going to be okay, right? And Dr. Ream said, I can't promise you that. But the AAs showed up, and the Al-Anons showed up, and you supported us. And Wes did get okay. He survived that illness. But it taught me a great lesson. Life happens. Horrible things happen. And it's not a God deal. It's a God deal that you make it through. And I was so grateful for that. And Wes graduated on time. Thank you, God. Across the stage, got to take pictures, through the hat. Everything was great. And so he's starting the University of Texas, and Laura's got a job, and Bill comes home one day, and he says, how about if we moved to Reston, Virginia? And I said, why would we do that? And he said, I'm tired of getting on airplanes. He said, I've been traveling so much. And he said, let's just move to Reston. And I said, okay, wherever you want to go, I'm going. The reason I said that was because houses in Austin, Texas in 1990 were not selling. We weren't going anywhere. Yeah, our house sold in 2 weeks. The A's and the Al-Anons are all there, and I'm crying. This wonderful guy named Tommy came up and he gave me a hug. He said, Stephanie, what is the matter with you? And I said, I don't think I can go. I said, I want to go with Bill, but I don't think I can do it. And he said, why not? And I said, I can't leave my children. And I can't leave my sponsor and my meetings or my gynecologist or my grocery store. You know, I don't know how you do life and you do this big of a change. And he said, well, did you know, Stephanie, you know what you've got in Austin, Texas. Why don't you go find out what they've got in Reston, Virginia? You know what? They have Al-Anon in Reston, Virginia. They don't do it right, but they have Al-Anon in Virginia. I called Blanche. I said, Blanche, you will not believe what happened just now at this meeting. And she'd say, what? And I says, they didn't talk about higher power. They didn't talk about a step. I said, it's horrible. And she said, what did you do? And I said, I told them how we're doing it in Texas. She said, maybe you want to stop saying that. I did, and the meetings got really good. So now we're up in Reston, Virginia. Beautiful season changes. I'm teaching school. I love it. Bill's got a job he loves. The kids are down here in Texas. Hello, good. Sorry, call us, good, goodbye. It was wonderful. We were like on a second honeymoon. It was just fantastic. And then we get a call from Laura. And she says, Mom, I don't think you're going to believe this. And I said, what? And she said, I found Wes passed out last night. And I said, what? And I said, well, he wasn't drinking. And she went, what? And I said, he wasn't drinking. And she said, Mom. And I said, no, he saw your daddy nearly die from alcoholism. He saw you lose your home. I said, your brother was not drinking. She said, Mom, I took Wes to his first AA meeting this morning. January the 10th of 1991, Wes began his spiritual journey. Well, my gosh, we are a family in recovery. How much better could it get? I'm telling you, every time we come home and we're in these open AA meetings and we're holding prayers, my cup is overflowing. I am so, so grateful. It is a family illness, and there is a family that can get to recovery. It just takes one starting. So I am just as happy as I can be, and we fly down and we see the kids, and we go back and we play lovey-dovey husband and wife, and everything is just great. And then we get another call from Laura. Mom, guess what? What? I'm going to have a baby. I said, honey, no, you're not. She says, Mom, I'm going to have a baby. I said, no, Laura, you are not. She said, well, do you want me to have an abortion? I said, no. She said, do you want me to give the baby up for adoption? And I said, no. And she said, what do you want? And I said, I want you to not be pregnant. Blanche said I was opting for one of my unavailable choices. I said, see, Laura, first you have the wedding, honey, and then you have the baby. We didn't have a wedding. You are not having a baby. She says, Mother, I am pregnant. Ugh, I couldn't believe it. I thought, what have y'all done with her? She'd been sober 5 years. Had you not taught her anything? I couldn't believe it, and it was a reflection on me as a parent, right? So I certainly kept it a secret. I didn't tell any of my Al-Anon friends in Virginia. I couldn't believe this was happening to our family. Well, Bill and I had been having big book study meetings in our house, and so one night we were having our big book study meeting, and all the couples were there, and then everybody left except George and Rita. And I said, you know, Rita, come here, I need to tell you something. She said, what? And I said, it's really bad. She said, it is. I said, yeah. I said, Laura's pregnant. She said, oh. And I said, no, it's bad. Bad. She said, why? And I said, because she's not married. And she said, Stephanie, isn't it a shame that you have to label things? Can't you just say it's what is? It's just what is. And you know what? I have been judging and labeling things all of my life. I judge it and I find it bad. On June the 6th of 1992, the most beautiful baby girl you have ever seen was born. Her name is Stephanie Grace. I would have missed it. I would have missed it. Oh. Bill was there sober. Wes was there sober. I was there crying. You know, we didn't need a marriage. We didn't need a piece of paper. Here was a baby that was loved by this family. Oh my gosh. It was one of the happiest days of my life, and I would have missed it. Well, I have to tell you some stories about Grace. When she was in second grade, the teacher asked the kids to stand up and introduce themselves. Grace stands up and she says, my name is Grace, I'm an alcoholic, and I've been sober 7 years. Her teacher said, what did you say? She is her mother's daughter, so she puts her hands on her hips and she says, did you not hear I said I'm an alcoholic? You know, Grace had never heard anybody introduce themselves any other way. She had been sitting in enough meetings that everybody said their name and said they were an alcoholic. Laura had a lot of explaining to do. When Grace was a little girl, she went to the Northland, which is an AA club in Austin, and she went up to Gerald and she said, Gerald, I want to buy a big book. He said, okay. She says, how much they cost? He said, how much money do you have, Grace? She said, I got this much money. And he says, that's just how much a big book cost. And he took Grace's money and gave Grace her first big book. Then she turns around and she says, now I need to find me a sponsor. Those girls that Laura sponsored all started ducking. Well, I have to tell you that this past June, Grace celebrated her 16th birthday. She is still the love of my life. I am so grateful that she is my granddaughter. I'm so sorry that I judged it. And Grace has had a rough life, and she's got some problems not to do with alcoholism. But I'm telling you, my sponsor calls her a wise old soul. You know, that's my Grace. I adore her. She's really something special. Well, in 1993, I got a phone call from San Antonio, and they told me that my daddy had an abdominal aneurysm and that it had ruptured and he had died instantly. And I was devastated. I love my daddy. But I have to tell you, as sad as I was that my daddy had died, that's how grateful I am that I had been in the Al-Anon program. I had done a 9th step with my daddy. Everything was clean and clear. Everything was good. And I was so grateful that I knew that he loved me the best he could and I loved him. And now I have to tell you part of my story. One of my character defects is wishing the past were different. You know, you can change almost everything, but you can't change the past. And this is my past, and it's my story. in February of 1994, with 8.5 years of sobriety, Bill Butler could not live with his humanness, and he committed suicide. Bill suffered from depression. He had been on and off of antidepressants most of his life. And he was feeling so good he had taken himself off. I had visited with a psychiatrist afterwards and said, "What?" And he said it was an instantaneous decision. I said, "He didn't call me. I don't understand. We had been together 33 years. And he said he was not sane at this moment. It was an insane decision. Now I need for you to listen to two things that I'm going to tell you. AA works. Bill Butler cherished his sobriety. He would not give up his sobriety for anything. The second thing you need to hear me say is depression is an illness, and if it goes untreated, it will kill you. The hardest thing I have ever had to do was to call my children. Laura said, "Mama, Daddy loved you too much. He would never go off and leave you." And I called Wes, and he said, "Mama, Daddy loves you. Daddy's not going to go anywhere. He loves you." I want you to know it's not about love. I loved that man, and he loved me. And we had a beautiful life. We were financially secure for the first time ever. We had a brand new grandbaby. We had sober children. It has nothing to do with any of that. It is about a disease. It is a chemical imbalance. They wanted to have a memorial service for him in Virginia before we brought him back to Texas. That church was filled with people. My teacher friends came up to me and they said, "Who are all these people? You know, you've lived here 4 years. We've lived here 20. We don't know half this many people." But you know what? You told me when I came into the program that I would never have to do anything alone again, and you meant it. Never do I have to ever do anything alone. I needed a lot of counseling. I just couldn't wrap my brain around it. And the counselor said to me, "You need to know that you have been traumatized. There is a difference between grief and trauma. Grief is when you lose something, and it's hard, and you have to go through it. Trauma is when in one instant your life changes and will never be the same again. You have been traumatized. It has a whole lot of different characteristics that go with it." So I was in counseling for 2 years, sometimes 3 times a week. I had done everything that I knew to do. And the program, I was going to meetings. I mean, Blanche had told me I had to get a sponsor in Virginia, and I did. But let me tell you, she does not know what to do with a sponsee whose husband commits suicide. It was too big for her. It was too big. She stayed away. So Blanche taught me what to do. I wrote her a little note and said, "Thank you for all you've done. And we will be friends forever. We're just not going to put sponsor on it." And there was a beautiful woman who had been sitting in Al-Anon meetings with me, and she called and left a message, and she knew pain. And her name is Dawn. And she said, "If you ever need anybody to talk to, I'll be there for you." And Dawn became my Virginia Al-Anon sponsor. And what a gift. Oh my gosh. She would hold me and let me cry. She and Peter, she and her husband, they were just wonderful to me. A year after Bill died, both of my children decided to get married. And so I'm talking to Nancy, and I'm going, they're going to get married? And she said, you know, when children, your children's ages, loses their family, they might find it necessary to recreate the family unit quickly. And this may be a practice marriage for your children. It was. Laura got married in April, and Wes got married in August, and they were both practice marriages. During all this time, the children had asked me to come home. They said, Mama, I don't know why you're staying in Virginia. Come down here with us. Come play with Grace, you know. And I said, no. I said, I've got a job to do. I'd become a director of the school where I taught. And I was a director of their extended care program. And I said, no, I think I'm okay. And Bill had been investing money. I mean, we never had money. We lived from paycheck to paycheck. But for some reason, he would take some of his paycheck and he would invest it with something at the company, and the company would put in money or something. Anyway, there was this large sum of money. I don't know what to do with money. I never have. I didn't really want it. I didn't care about it, but it was sitting there. But I said, I want to stay here. I want to do this. And you know what? Almost 2 years to the day after Bill Butler died, I walked into our house and I said, he's not coming home. It took 2 years to get the idea from my head to my heart. And I called those kids and I said, you know what, I think I'm coming home. And they were both, well, Laura was really pretty happy. Russ was a little concerned. He had been my mainstay after his dad's death, and he was married. And he was wondering if I would become a interfering mother-in-law. I said, Wes, I'm doing good, sweetie. It's going to, okay, Mom, come on, we'd love to have you. You know, so when I got ready to leave Virginia, everybody says to me, well, where are you going? I said, you know what? I have never lived in a new house. I think I'm going to try to find a new house. And you know what? I found out being in Virginia that I love the water. I need to see water. And when you're in Virginia, the trees are so tall, you never get to see the sunset. I love sunsets. And God said, good, come here. And he gave me a brand new house sitting on Lake LBJ with the sun setting out over Pack Saddle Mountain right out my back door. Oh, my, it's beautiful. I am in seventh heaven. Grace and I are going to travel. We're going to come to Fort Worth to celebrations of sobriety. We're going to take cruises. We're just going to have the best time. And, you know, Dawn and I are working together, and Blanche and I are back together because I'm coming back, and I've got two of the greatest sponsors anybody would ever hope to. I must have been a really sick puppy. You know, I mean, God gave me the big ones, you know, but I'm blessed. I am blessed. So I'm back in Texas now, and I'm ready to start my life, and I called this guy up in Virginia that I had invested my money with. And I said, Bruce, if you'll just send the money down here to Marble Falls, we're ready to get on with the rest of our lives. Grace and I are going to have a good time. And he's, you know, the check's in the mail. It didn't come. Bruce stole almost $350,000. I invested my money with somebody that wasn't trustworthy. It was like another death in the family. I didn't think I would survive that. I cried. It was horrible. It was horrible. I could not believe that somebody would do that to me. I mean, it was just the disbelief for one thing. And how could anybody do that? I'd met his family. I didn't understand. But thank you, AA. You told me to pray for this. And been praying for Bruce and his family every day. Every day. Now I have no money. I have a new house that I did not pay cash for because Bruce suggested that it wouldn't be a good idea. I need a house payment or I'm going to have to move. I don't know what I'm going to do. I really am. I mean, Laura says, pray for clear and concise direction, Mom. I'm wearing my knees out. I've tried everything. You know what God did? He opened up a school. It's an elementary school, and it's 7 minutes from my house. Did you know that they needed a first grade teacher? I'm teaching first grade in Granite Shoals, Texas. I didn't think I'd ever be teaching again. I am the oldest teacher on staff. That's my martyr button. I just have to say it every once in a while. I'm not well yet. But anybody that listens, I'll say I am the oldest, you know. Poor me. And so, but I get to teach school. And I love teaching school, but I really am tired. But anyway, so Blanche and I are working together, but now Blanche is really getting concerned because you know what? I am driving an old Oldsmobile. It has over 100,000 miles on it, and I have no money. There's no way to buy a car. So I call Blanche, and Blanche says, Stephanie, what are you doing? I said, well, I've got this knot in my tummy, but as soon as that goes away, she says, well, I'm going to enter some sweepstakes for you. I said, you go for it, Blanche. So she would call and say, can you drive a red Jeep? I said, oh, yeah, I can drive a red Jeep. Well, in the year 2000, Blanche was in an accident, and she ended up in the hospital in Temple, Texas, about an hour and a half. And so I drove there every Saturday to be with her. She was in the hospital for 7 weeks. I would walk into her hospital room, and she would say, how's your car? I say, Blanche, we got to get you well and get you out of here. Blanche did not survive her injuries. Another really big loss. I got a call from Laura. She says, Mama, you are going to tell them. They asked me if I would speak at Blanche's memorial service. And they said, Laura said, you are going to tell them how important Blanche was to us, aren't you? And I said, Laura, you hated Blanche. She did. She said, Mama, Blanche asked you to teach me that there are consequences for my choices. Blanche asked you to not accept unacceptable behavior. Blanche asked you to hold me responsible. If it hadn't been for Blanche, I would probably be dead today. And I could share that with them. So Dawn and I now today are just very, very close, and I'm very grateful that I have Dawn and have had for a long time. So Blanche had been gone for a couple of months, and I get a call from her daughter. And she said, Stephanie, I don't know if you're going to understand this or not, but I had a visit from my mother last night. Okay? She's worried about your transportation. I said, I wish I'd said, tell her to get her little bottom to a meeting, because they've got to have some good ones up there. And she said, she wants you to have her car. And I said, I could never drive Blanche's car. And she said, well, then you're going to have to argue with my mother and with God. Blanche was driving a 99 Cadillac, had 23,000 miles on it, and it's all paid for. That's what I drove up here this weekend. It now has 131,000 miles on it. Somebody better enter a sweepstake. But oh my gosh, what a blessing. What a blessing. Every time I get in it, I thank her and I thank Ellen. That I am safe one more time. It wasn't my idea. And I have a problem with limiting God. I wanted Laura to graduate from high school. That's all I wanted. I wanted her to get married before she had a baby. That's all I wanted. I wanted Wes to not be an alcoholic. That's all I wanted. And all I really needed was for somebody to help me figure out how to make a car payment. That's all I wanted. God said yes, and here's more. I am teaching school today. My daughter has remarried a fine man, and they're a sober member of AA. They're raising grace. They have meetings in their home. I'm very grateful for Laura and for Brian. Wesley was married, gave me a beautiful granddaughter about 2 years ago. Her name is Dylan. Absolutely adore that little girl. Wes, I hope I'm not running out of time. Wesley was a coach. He was a coach in a high school. He had been thrown from a horse in Wyoming and broke his back. And they can't repair the break. It is a wedged break. So Wes is on pain pills. Well, he was a stay-at-home daddy because Kelly made a lot of more money than he did, so he stayed at home. And during that time, he took too many pills. And his best friend called and said, I'm coming to pick you up and I'm taking you to treatment. And this past September, Wes has been clean for a year. So he had been sober for 16, and then he's clean for a year. And I'm very grateful. His wife does not understand the addiction process, so that marriage came to an end. But I need to tell you one more thing real quick. Wes is great. Laura's great. Grace is wonderful. Dylan's absolutely delightful. My mother has Alzheimer's, and because you have supported me, I'm going to be able to walk through that with my mom with grace and dignity. But I want to tell you what happened. If Bruce Whitson had not taken my money, I would not have been given a gift. The gift's name is Rosie. This is a little girl that I taught 2 years ago. She has Turner syndrome. She has a speech defect, an enlarged heart. She has already had a hysterectomy. She will probably not grow completely. She is hyperactive, but they can't give her anything for that because it interferes with the growth hormone. Every day when you see Rosie, she goes, Miss Butler, Miss Butler! She's so excited to be alive. If Bruce had not taken the money, I would have missed Rosie. And I wouldn't miss Rosie for the world. So my belief today is I am loved by a very caring, great, wonderful higher power that will help me walk through anything. And I hope, I pray that I am awake for the miracles and the blessings because they are many. And one of the ones I received today was you being able to help me heal a little bit by listening, and I appreciate that. Thank you.